Blueface just got caught. Jaidyn Alexis turned his $30,000 receipt into the most brutal clapback of his entire career. So this is where we've landed. Alright, hold that thought before we crack this open. Because trust me, we are cracking this one wide open. I need everyone watching to lock in right now. This is not another surface-level celebrity spat. This is not another one of those overnight, one-post, gone-by morning flare-ups. This is a full-blown financial warfare case study, and Blueface just handed the internet the receipt that ends his own argument. If you have been following the wreckage that is his public relationship with Jaidyn Alexis, then you already smell what is on the stove. And if you are new, buckle in, because what we are about to walk through is one of the most cold-blooded, calculated, checkbook-powered public humiliation campaigns hip-hop has seen in years, and it just blew up in his face in the most poetic way possible. Because here is the truth nobody is saying out loud. Blueface did not just insult the mother of his children. He did not just clown a woman on the internet for a few careless streams. He literally paid $30,000 in cash to physically alter Jaidyn Alexis's body, and then turned that same body into his personal punching bag the second she tried to breathe on her own. That is not a breakup. That is not petty drama. That is not two people who cannot stop bickering online. That is documented, dated, receipt-heavy financial control, and Jaidyn Alexis just walked onto a live stream and dismantled the entire operation in under 10 minutes. So we are going to break this down piece by piece, because the timeline of this thing tells a story that Blueface does not want you connecting. Let me be clear about the money first, because the money is where every lie he tells begins. In late 2023, Blueface did not quietly support Jaidyn Alexis getting her surgery. He turned it into a full media event. He put the $30,000 price tag on his own timeline. He put it in interviews. He put it in his own live streams. He wanted the world to know he wrote the check, right down to the last cent. And that alone should have been the first red flag, because in this culture, when a man broadcasts what he spent on a woman's body before she has even fully healed, he is not celebrating her. He is claiming her. He is planting a flag. He is telling the audience, and more importantly telling her, that the body belongs to whoever paid the invoice. And this is where the industry math starts working against Jaidyn Alexis. Because in the hip-hop reality economy, cosmetic surgery is not treated as a personal choice. It is treated as a business investment. Labels do it. Managers do it. Boyfriends with a platform do it. And when Blueface funded Jaidyn's procedure, he was not gifting his partner a new chapter of confidence. He was rebranding an asset for the MILF music rollout. He was upgrading the packaging on the Barbie single. He was giving his own digital empire a new marketing engine, and Jaidyn's post-surgery body became the fuel. Every promo photo, every music flyer, every Instagram post, every stream number, all of it climbed on the back of a body he now believed he owned. But here is the moment the whole thing started to rot. The second Jaidyn Alexis started to move like an independent artist, the second her solo music started catching real traction without his fingerprints on it, the receipt got weaponized. Suddenly, the same body he had been parading in front of the world became the exact target he wanted to destroy. Not slowly. Not privately. Publicly. Systematically. And with a smirk on camera that told you every single insult was rehearsed the night before. Because make no mistake, the trolling did not start as a joke. It started as a strategy. Blueface walked in front of his own audience of millions and began pointing at the woman he financed like she was a bad Amazon return. He called the surgery botched on live stream after live stream. He zoomed in on her hips. He circled her waist. He gestured at the very same silhouette he had bragged about for months on end. And every single time he said the word botched, he was not describing anything real. He was drilling a hole in her confidence with a word he knew the algorithm would attach to her name forever. And that is the part people are missing. This was not a man venting about a bad relationship. This was a man planting SEO poison in the woman's own search results. Every time you type Jaidyn Alexis into a search bar today, his word is what greets you first. That is not accident. That is not passion. That is a man using his platform like a hammer and using her image like a nail, driving that nail deeper with every stream, every post, every deliberately unflattering angle. Now, some of you are already typing in the comments, well, this is just hip-hop drama. This is what these people signed up for. And I hear you. I really do. But here is the wall you cannot climb over. Blueface funded the surgery. He witnessed the recovery. He watched the compression garments come on and come off. He watched the drainage tubes. He knew the pain of the healing process because he was in the room for it. And he still chose, with all of that knowledge in hand, to mock the swelling before it went down. He still chose to laugh at the healing stages before her body had settled. That is not immaturity. That is not a man being petty. That is a man weaponizing intimate medical knowledge against the mother of his children for content. That is a completely different kind of cruelty, and pretending it is anything less is exactly why he thought he could keep getting away with it. And it got worse. Because he did not just insult Jaidyn Alexis alone in a corner of the internet. He built a coliseum. He started running side-by-side comparisons of Jaidyn's results against other women in his orbit. He invited internet personalities to react. He turned her body into a public dissection table where thousands of strangers took turns holding the scalpel. This is where the phrase gets born, because what I am now calling Blueface ownership delusion set in fully. He genuinely believed that because his money moved through the surgeon's account, he held copyright on Jaidyn Alexis's self-worth. He believed the check gave him editing rights over her identity. He believed the invoice came with a permanent volume knob on her voice, and only he was allowed to touch it. And that is the exact assumption that just destroyed him. Because here is what the checkbook cowboy of the culture did not calculate. He did not calculate that Jaidyn Alexis had been paying attention this entire time. He did not calculate that she had been logging every insult, every zoom in, every smirk, every side-by-side, every mocking punchline. He did not calculate that behind the quiet, there was a woman drawing a very specific map. He thought silence meant surrender. In his mind, she was going to disappear, delete her accounts, cry off camera, beg for validation, come crawling back for approval. He genuinely believed the woman who carried his children was too fragile to fight back. And that miscalculation is the exact reason we are having this conversation right now. Because when Jaidyn Alexis finally opened her mouth, she did not open it in a text post. She did not open it in a passive-aggressive lyric. She did not open it in a subtweet buried under her main feed. She opened it live. Camera on. No filter. No angles. No edits. She stood up, faced the internet head-on, and let the entire room see the exact body Blueface had spent weeks trying to convince the world was ruined. And in one movement, she detonated the whole narrative. And this is the part that separates Jaidyn Alexis from every other woman who has been dragged through this kind of public campaign. She did not raise her voice. She did not match his pettiness. She did not fire an insult back for every insult he had thrown. She did something far more surgical than that. She turned the money against him. Because Jaidyn Alexis looked into that camera and asked the one question he could not survive. If the surgery is so botched, why is it still the only thing keeping you relevant? That single line is what flipped the entire dynamic. Because in one sentence, Jaidyn Alexis reframed the whole story. Blueface stopped being the wealthy benefactor. He stopped being the powerful ex with the checkbook. He became something much smaller and much more humiliating, an obsessed ex-partner who could not build a headline without her name in it. She made the audience see what they had been ignoring. His platform had been running on Jaidyn Alexis fumes for months. Every viral moment, every trending clip, every algorithm spike, all of it was oxygenated by her name, her face, her body, her drama. And the moment she named it out loud, the entire spell broke. And then she went further. Because it was not enough to expose the dependency. Jaidyn Alexis went straight for the leash itself. She looked into the camera and made it plain that he could pay for the physical transformation. Sure, that receipt existed, no one was denying it, but the check did not come with her voice, her dignity, or her obedience attached to it. She stripped the $30,000 of every ounce of leverage it had been carrying. She proved, in real time, that a checkbook can rearrange a body, but it cannot rewrite a woman's self-worth. And with that single move, The entire financial control apparatus Blueface had spent a year building collapsed on live camera. Now think about how devastating that is for a man whose entire brand identity is built on flexing. His whole persona is the guy who says whatever he wants and pays whatever he wants, and everybody has to accept it because the money is louder than the manners. That is the Blueface character. That is the Blueface shtick. That is the shtick that built the entire Blueface brand from the ground up. And Jaidyn Alexis just walked on stage and quietly turned the volume of that entire persona down to zero. Not with anger. Not with insults. With one calm, camera-ready sentence. And the internet noticed instantly. Because here is what makes this so dangerous for him going forward. The comment sections did not just change. They flipped. The exact platforms that had been flooding Jaidyn Alexis's posts with his talking points started turning into a wall of support for her overnight. The word botched stopped chasing her name in search results and started boomeranging back at his own credibility. The tide moved so fast that even neutral observers, people who had zero investment in this couple's drama, started looking at Blueface differently. And once that shift happens in the culture, it does not come back. Public perception is a one-way door, and he just walked through the wrong side of it without noticing. And let me be honest for a second, because I want to be fair here. There is a version of this story where Blueface actually looked in the mirror after her live stream and understood what had just happened to him. There is a version where he apologized, killed the trolling, rebuilt some kind of dignity around his family, and let the internet move on. That version does exist. It is a possible path. But turn the dial up for a second and be real with me. Is that the man he has ever been? Is that the pattern? Because the pattern I keep seeing is a man who doubles down when he is losing, who escalates when he is exposed, who turns up the volume the moment his argument breaks. And that is exactly what he did after Jaidyn's clapback started trending. He tried to spin it. He tried to reframe her as ungrateful. He tried to shift the story back onto the money, as if reminding everyone one more time that he had spent $30,000 would somehow undo the fact that she had just used the same $30,000 to end his argument. But by that point, the audience was not listening the same way. Because Jaidyn Alexis had already installed the frame. And once a woman is publicly credited with dismantling a man's leverage on live camera, no amount of retroactive posting can rebuild that leverage. That door is welded shut, and Blueface welded it himself. And this is where I want you to zoom all the way out with me, because there is a bigger pattern happening here that the culture keeps missing. Blueface is not the only man in this genre who plays this game. He is just the one who left the receipts on the counter. What we are actually watching is a template. A well-worn, well-documented template where financial support gets framed as love, love gets framed as ownership, and ownership gets used to justify public humiliation the moment the woman tries to walk. He did not invent this. He just performed it the loudest, on the biggest platform, with the most visible receipts. And every time a woman in this space finds the courage to name the template on camera the way Jaidyn Alexis just did, another link in that chain snaps for everybody watching. Because let me tell you what Jaidyn Alexis actually did that night. Forget the surgery. Forget the insults. Forget the streams. Forget the comment section wars. What she really did was give a masterclass in how to weaponize composure against a man who is used to weaponizing chaos. His entire strategy has always depended on the woman across from him losing her cool. That is his oxygen. He wants her yelling. He wants her crying. He wants her posting and deleting and posting and deleting. Because as long as she is emotional, he looks calm. As long as she is reacting, he looks like the one in control. Jaidyn Alexis walked in and refused to play. She stayed calm. She stayed on message. She stayed unshaken from start to finish. And she starved him of the exact fuel his entire platform runs on. That is why the response went viral. That is why the clips are still cutting up TikTok and Instagram days later. That is why comment sections that were hostile to her a month ago are now writing love letters underneath every post. She did not just win an argument. She stole the microphone. And now every single move Blueface makes going forward is going to be measured against that clip. Every stream. Every post. Every interview. That clip is the new baseline, and he cannot delete his way out of it. Which brings us to the question the whole culture is actually debating right now, whether they know it or not. When you strip the price tag off, when you strip the streams off, when you strip the meme mockery off, what is this really? Is this hip-hop reality drama we should scroll past and forget by next weekend? Or is this a live broadcast blueprint of how financial leverage gets used to slowly disassemble a woman's self-esteem the moment she tries to reclaim any part of her own life? Because I do not think this was drama. I think this was a public trial. And Jaidyn Alexis just delivered a closing argument that Blueface will be quoted against for the rest of his career. And here is the part he still has not fully processed. The $30,000 did not just fail to buy him ownership. It bought him the evidence against himself. Every time he brought that number up in a stream, he was building the case Jaidyn would use later. Every time he pointed at her body on camera, he was recording the exhibit that would be replayed the second she pushed back. He built the museum. She just cut the ribbon. And now every single receipt he ever waved is hanging on the wall, labeled, dated, time-stamped, and pointing directly at him. The mask is coming clean off, and there is not enough money in his account to buy it back. And here is something else the culture needs to sit with. This is not the first time Blueface has picked a fight with a woman who ended up rewriting his narrative on live camera. This is not the first time his pattern of financial flexing has been used against him by the exact person he thought he was controlling. But this might be the first time the woman on the other side of Blueface's platform left him with absolutely nowhere to run. Because Jaidyn Alexis did not just clap back. She created a case file. She created a receipt of her own. And every future clip of him bragging about that $30,000 is now going to be watched through the lens of what she said on that stream. That is not damage. That is permanent structural rewiring of his brand. You want to know why the algorithm cannot stop pushing this story right now? Because it hits every single button at once. Money, betrayal, body politics, motherhood, public humiliation, live camera revenge, independent woman power reversal. That is a semantic cocktail the recommendation engine cannot ignore, and every hour that passes, more people are finding this story fresh. Which means more people are finding Jaidyn Alexis's clapback for the very first time, and every one of those first-time viewers is walking away with the same conclusion. The checkbook did not win. It never was going to win. It just took her stepping in front of a camera to prove it to the culture. And let me pull the lens back one more time, because there is a piece of this that keeps getting buried under the surgery talk. Jaidyn Alexis is the mother of Blueface children. Not a stranger. Not a passing fling. Not an ex from a decade ago he barely remembers. The mother of his children. And he chose, knowing that, to make her body the punchline of his platform. He chose, knowing that his kids will grow up in a world where every clip is searchable, to attach the word botched to their mother's name in perpetuity. That is a level of recklessness that goes way past personal beef. That is the kind of decision that follows a family. Every one of those streams is now a piece of digital evidence his children will one day be old enough to type into a search bar. And I do not say that to be dramatic. I say it because when Jaidyn Alexis stood in front of that camera and refused to break, part of what she was defending was not just her own image. It was the version of herself her kids will one day see when they look her up. That is the weight she was carrying when she smiled into that lens and dismantled him with one sentence. And once you see that layer, you cannot unsee it, and you cannot pretend this was just petty back and forth between two adults with a phone plan. Now let us talk about something else the culture keeps skipping. The women watching this. Because Jaidyn Alexis did not just answer for herself on that stream. She answered on behalf of every woman in this genre who has ever been publicly reduced to a purchase order by a man with a platform. Every woman who has ever had her surgery, her body, her outfit, her look, her upgrade, her rebrand, thrown back in her face the moment she tried to grow a spine. Every woman who has ever had a receipt waved at her like a leash. When Jaidyn asked, "Why is my body still the only thing keeping you relevant?" that question did not just land on Blueface. It landed on an entire genre of behavior. And you can feel it in the comment sections tonight. Women are not just cheering her on. They are quoting her. They are turning her line into captions. They are stitching her clip. Because what she said finally gave a language to something that has been happening in this space for years without a name. That is why this clapback is not just going viral. It is going structural. It is not a moment. It is a marker. And every reality star relationship in this genre is going to be measured against it going forward, whether the men in those relationships want to admit it or not. Blueface thought his checkbook wrote the last word. Jaidyn Alexis just proved the pen was in her hand the whole time. And that is a lesson every man in this genre is going to have to sit with, whether they want to or not, because the era of buying a woman's silence with a surgery receipt just publicly ended on live camera, and there is no press release big enough to reverse it. So now the microphone genuinely does belong to you. Tell me everything, every angle, every hot take, every side of this you have been sitting on in the comments right now. Was Blueface's public clowning of Jaidyn Alexis's body a genuine step too far, or is this just the culture he built for himself finally coming home to sit on his doorstep? Did Jaidyn's calm, camera-ready clapback shut this entire feud down for good? Or is he already loading up the next post to try to spin it back? Drop your side. Drop your theories. Drop the receipt you think matters most in all of this. I am reading every single comment tonight, and I am replying to as many as I possibly can, because this is the kind of story that deserves the full conversation and not just a one-line hot take. And if you want to stay locked in on the biggest culture-shaking moments hitting hip-hop reality every single week, the receipts nobody else is pulling, the timelines nobody else is stitching together, the plot twists nobody else is catching in real time, go ahead and hit that subscribe button, tap that like, turn on notifications, and I will meet you right back here for the next one. Because trust me, this Blueface and Jaidyn Alexis story is not finished. Not even close. The next chapter is already being written behind the scenes, and when it drops, you are going to want to be in the front row. Lock in. I will see you in the next one.